Hi, it's Mark back with another Photoshop tutorial, and today we're going to be looking at luminosity masks. What are they? How do you use them? And how can they really improve your selection and adjustment layers and targeting of different parts of your image? So once the credits have flown in and we've done all that, we shall come back and have a look at exactly that. But can I just say thank you to my lovely wife for getting me this fantastic diary, which I think sums up probably last year and hopefully not the year to come. Cue the credits. Okay, welcome back. Today, this is the picture we're going to be working on. It was taken back in May of 2020, and while we were during lockdown, I took a yomp through Newcastle, all empty streets, no cars, no people. The guy in the picture is not me. The guy in the picture is photoshopped in from another image, from a stock image. I just wanted to have a bit of desolation, but one person, and I doctored the signpost over on the corner here to say there's hope forward in 2021, and hopefully we will have hope in 2021. Right, so luminosity. What is it, and what can we do with it? That's what this is all about. By the end of this particular tutorial, the goal is that you will have instructions for building an action which you can replay on any one of your future images, or back catalogue images for that matter. We'll just stick with on any one of your images, which will set up a whole series of luminosity masks for you, and you can cherry pick which ones you want to use while you go through editing your pictures. So that's the end game, so it's worth sticking around for that. And I think the best place to start might be a quick understanding of what we mean by luminosity. So apologies if my screen jumped there. I had to switch off my video and go and answer the door. I've had a delivery. Anyway, luminance is essentially just brilliance. And Photoshop tends to use a defining line at 50% grey. So things that are lighter are considered luminant, for want of a better description, and or let's call them highlights, and less than that head towards shadows. Of course, we've got mid-tones, but essentially above 50% grey is the highs and below is the shadows. Now, before we launch into how we're going to sort this out, let me try and describe to you how this will actually work. So I've prepared a picture here which has got red, green and blue. And if you've ever wandered over into channels, which is where we're going to be doing some of our work today, you'll notice that we've got RGB, we've got a red channel. What happens when I click on the red channel? It displays everything other than red. Green, everything other than green. Blue, everything other than blue. So here we've got these channels which can kind of help us target red, green and blue. However, the default channel, RGB, will let us find our initial 50% grey point and give us what our luminance are. You're going to have to trust me on this because this video would be so long if I had to go through everything. But just to demonstrate that, let us click on the red channel. Now if I command, and we'll be doing this a few times, command and click on a channel, you get a selection. As you can see, let us go back to RGB without altering that selection. And now let's go to layers. And now let's go to put a mask on by clicking that. And lo and behold, we've only preserved the red. So let's recap there. We went into our channels. Oops, that will now look a little bit different because I've changed the main layer. So I'll just remove that. Control Z. Control D to get rid of the marching ants. Let's go back in the channels. So we went into the red channel, which was different from RGB insofar as it masked out the other two, and we used that to create a mask. When we applied the mask, we were left with red. Let's go to green. Command, click. You can see the marching ants around the non-green values. Go back to RGB, go to layers, go to mask, and lo and behold, we've got green. So this process, and we have to be very precise on what we're clicking here, this process allows us to use channels to target a colour or a luminance. We're not interested in colour here, we're going to be doing this on luminance, but this is the principle we're going to be using. So back on our original document, let's try and put some of this into practice just for now. Remember, ultimately we're going to have a whole series of layers for this that you can reuse on any of your pictures. So from what we've learned, if I go to channels and I select any one of these, it will show where those colours are present. Granted, it looks black and white, but these are masks, remember? Masks are black, white, and all the greys in between. And I said that if you do RGB, it doesn't show the red, green, or blue. It gives a luminance mask for the entire picture. So if I go Command or Control on a PC and click that, you can see that it has loaded a mask, or a selection rather. And now if I go to layers, and let's apply an adjustment layer here. So I'm going to choose a curves adjustment layer. Now, whenever you've got a selection loaded and you choose an adjustment layer, it puts that as a mask into the effect or filter or whatever it is you're doing. So as we can see here, we've now got a curves layer, and it has got this mask. If I hold down my Option key or Alt key on a PC and click it, you'll see the mask is loaded. So let's just go back to curves. Now what does the mask do? Black hides and light reveals. So if I bring my black point, change my black point here severely, you can see that a lot of the lighter areas are darkening, but the blacks did not change. So it's targeting, as we expected it to, all the lighter areas, the more luminant areas, in fact anything over 50% grey. So hopefully that made some sense, and let's just get rid of that and let's go and have a look back at channels. So I want to create a channel for this and then create a series of channels after that. So let's repeat what we did. So Command, click. Now this time I'm going to click down here to create a new channel, and it's called Alpha 1. The next one's Alpha 2, Alpha 3, and so on. But I want to call this Default Highlights, and Control D. So now I've actually got one I can pick from RGB. What I want to do now is to create another one. That was 50% grey. I want to create another one which is half that again, so 50% higher if you like, so that would take it 75% grey and above, and we can do that. So by Command and click, and then the next keystroke, just make sure we get it right, is Command, Option, Shift and click. So that's Control, Alt, Shift and click. Command, Option, Shift. If you notice the little box, I'm still holding these keys down by the way, I have not done my click, on the hand that has just appeared has got an X on it. That's because it's going to merge two selections here. The one that we originally did with the Command and click, and now the one we're doing with the Command, Option, Shift and click. And you would, and I'll now take my fingers off the keys, you'll notice that the mask actually changed there. And if we now come down here and click on a new one, and let's have a look at that. Control D, get rid of the marching ants. If I click on this one, you'll notice it's darker. And that's right, because this is a mask, and the black hides and white reveals. We've said we wanted this half again, so it's taken it to the next level of brightness. So you'd expect there to be more dark in this mask. So let's call this higher, and I'm going to command click on that. Notice the square box there on the hand does not have an X in it, so command click on that. Now I want to go command option shift and click. It's got the X in it, and you notice the mask, or you may have noticed the mask changed again. So I'm going to come down here and click on a new alpha one again. Let's call this ultra high, and just because we can, let's do one more. So I've already got that selected, so if I just go command option shift and click, you'll notice the mask changed again. Come down here and let's call this one, you see it's darker still, I don't know, only dogs can hear this one. Okay, Control D. So where's that taking us? Well, if we think of these as masks and we start with our default highlights, and then as we go down, progressively there's more black coming in. Importantly, there's less white, and it's the white that the mask will allow things through, until we get right down here, and it's where only dogs can hear this one, and it's predominantly dark. I'm going to stick on ultra high just for the moment, and I'm going to go command and click to load that selection. I will return to RGB, and I'll go over to layers. Okay, so now let's use that selection. You can still see the marching ants. We're back on our original picture, and I'm going to do something here. I'm going to use the solid color adjustment layer just because it's a little bit more visual for what we want to do. I'm going to choose a solid color, and I'm going to pick a red, something rather garish. Click OK, and you can see where that has been applied. It's not applied in the real shadows here or in the midtones. It's actually applied quite aggressively where we thought was the brightest part, which is the side of this building, and then at various shades on the way down. So you can see what's happening here. I'll just put it onto a color blend mode and reduce some of the opacity. And what I've just done there is just added a little bit of a red to pinky type tone in the real highlights. So if that made sense, we're doing very well. We will be going through it again when we build an action around this, and we'll be very careful about what our keystrokes are. When I say be careful on the keystrokes, your Mac or your PC is not going to blow up. We're not actually going to do anything really damaging that you can't Control Z and get out of. It just be precise with them, otherwise you might not get the effect you're after. One common issue is once you choose one, let's say we choose the ultra high as we did before, and then I go back to layers, it's now red. That's a warning of sorts, because to tell us that we had not returned to RGB. So you can, if you find that when you go to layers during any of this, you find that one of these has been coloured red, right, it's because we did not return to the RGB line before we actually went back into our layers. Let's soldier on. Now the observant amongst you, which isn't always me, will have noticed we've actually got an extra one appeared here, colour fill one mask. That's as a result of us having used one and actually put it in here, and it was a colour fill. So I don't want this layer anyway, so I'm going to delete that, and let's go back into channels, and lo and behold, it's actually gone. So that's all well and good. We can now target the extreme highlights and progressively come down through them. But what about the shadows? Well, there is a quick way of doing shadows. If we take our default highlight and we drag and click and drag it down to this little plus icon, we will duplicate it. We've now got a duplicate. If I click on it and invert it, so Command I on a Mac, Control I on a PC, we've changed that mask. And no prizes for guessing what this is now, This is going to be a default shadow. And let's use this one just to prove the point. You can tell from the mask, those extreme whites now are black. So in a mask, that will stop coming through, and the darkest part of the photograph down here is now white. So it's a mask that'll allow things through. So let's Command or Control click to load that selection. Return to RGB, go back to our layers, and let's put a curves adjustment layer on this. I've applied the curves adjustment layer and it inherited the mask, and as you can see, if I bring down, it is only darkening the things that were already with source dark, so things that were less than 50% grey. So this is good. This is starting to give us some tools now. Just get rid of that. Not interested in it at the moment, and go back to our channels. Now we've got a default shadow. What if we actually wanted to target that in the same way as we did before? We want to get progressively darker versions. Well, let's do that, shall we? So as before, we're going to click Command click to get that selection, and then we're going to go Command Option and Shift, Control Alt and Shift, and click, and you notice the mask changed again. If we come down here and click on that to create a new channel and go to it, you will notice that more of it has become dark. So more of it is going to be masked out, but the bits that we know are really dark, just visually here, around the bus only sign at the bottom of the screen here, we can see that they are still very light indeed. So what should we call this one? Call it darker. And we've still got the selection in the place. So if we just go Command, Option, Shift, and click again, and then come down and create, you can see what we're doing. It's darker again. I'm going to call this ultra dark. And then we've still got that selection there. Command, Option, Shift. Oh, what if we'd lost that selection? I've just switched it off with the Control D, which always removes your selection. You're watching ants. We could go Command and click on it just to bring it back. So if you do click off and you want to play catch up, then have to reload it again. So Command, Option, Shift, and click, and then click there. This is going to be our last one for now. And you can see it's darker again, so what should we call it? I don't know. Only cats can see this one. Right, we've now got a whole series of channels that we can use to target various aspects of the luminosity in our picture, from default highs, higher, higher, and higher, to shadows, darker, darker, and darker. So let's go for ultra dark and do something with that on our picture. So Command click to load the selection. Remember, we have to change back to RGB, then over to our layers. Then let's put in a solid color. I'm going to pick I don't know, something like a dark purple, just to put a color grading on this, I guess. Click that, change it to a color overlay, change the opacity, and you can see, switch it off and on, we've introduced a purple cast across this. Not the most useful of things to do, but just something for the purposes of the tutorial that is more demonstrative, that you can more easily see. So that is it. I suggest we stop, we have a cup of tea, we come back, perhaps replay up to this point, but we're now going to go through this again a little bit more quickly, because we know what we're doing, and we're not actually going to be playing with adjusting this image. We're going to be doing this as we build an action, and that action will result in a series of luminosity layers, so you don't have to go through any pain again. You can just go to your actions, click on it, and it'll prepare all of the various ones for you, and that would be far more useful. Let's have a cup of tea. So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your cup of tea. I had a green tea because even though it's not the new year yet, I've decided to start my post-Christmas detox, and not a day too soon. Actions. Okay, so my actions are here. If you don't see yours, then if you go to Windows and Actions, and there's a list of some of the default actions you get with Photoshop, and we're going to create our own to put our channels in place, which will provide us with our various luminance masks. Actions record all of your keystrokes, changes to layers, and so on and so forth, and you can play them repeatedly. That's the advantage of doing this. So we've got a plus button there to create a new one. We've got a record button, a stop button, and a play button. So let's start by recording things. Click on record, and we'll call this luminosity masks, and why not 01 in case we want to do a collection of them at some point, and click on record, and the little record light comes on here. So let's go back through what we've learned and complete this action. So we learned that we went to channels, and we learned that if we click Command and click on RGB, we get our first selection, and this is based on 50% grey or lighter. And if we come down here, it creates a new channel for us, which I'm going to call highlights. What else did we learn? Where we learned that to create the shadows, we took a copy of this. So I'll just Control D to get rid of the marching ants, drag our highlights down to the plus box, and there's our copy, which I'm going to call shadows. And remember, we need to invert that, so click on that with the Command I or Control I on a PC, and there's our shadows one. Now, I'm not going to do all the 3 or 4 versions of these that we saw last time. I'm just going to put in a midtones, because that's something new. We haven't looked at that yet. So using the same technique as before, we do a Control and click to make the selection. Then we do Command, Option, and Shift, or Control, Alt, and Shift on a PC. And this time we click on the shadows, so it's merging these two. Now you get this warning, and that's a proper warning. No pixels are more than 50% selected. And so you won't see the edges of the marching ants. So we'll just click OK on that. And yes, you do not see the marching ants, but rest assured, a selection is still there. It's just not visible. So if we come back down here and click on our icon, we get another channel there, and that is our midtones. And go back to RGB. So that's our action complete. So I'm just going to click on stop and collapse the action just to tidy it up. And we're ready to roll. So what I'll do now is try it out. Let's throw away this particular picture, and I'm not going to save anything. So we truly are start from scratch. I've got a picture of a castle here, and as you can see from channels, there's no additional channels there, and it's just a simple background layer. I click on my action, and I click the play button, and that's it. All done. Wasn't that very, very quick? Let's have a look. Channels, and there they are. Highlights, shadows, and midtones. So let's start with the shadows. Let's do a Command and click to call up the selection. Return to RGB, return to layers, and now I'll put in a curves adjustment layer. And the curves adjustment layer inherits the mask that was there, where black hides and white reveals. So if I make an adjustment now to the curves, to darken this, You see it's just affecting the shadows. All right, let's do one more adjustment to this. Not really fussed about what I'm doing on this picture, but it's more just demonstrating that action worked and we're using it for real, as it were. Back to channels, highlights. So I'm going to click Command and click, or Control and click on a PC, return to RGB, go over to layers, and I'm going to add another curves adjustment layer. And again, it inherits the selection. Now we know this one is going to affect highlights. So we can bring the highlights down, make it a little bit more like there's a decent sunset going on there. But the real advantage here is how much more difficult would it have been to make the various selections based on luminosity. You could, I guess, just click on the background again, hit W for my selection tool. There's lots of various selection tools. You could have started to make a selection like that, just rough for now, and don't look for a sky replacement, or indeed add a curves adjustment layer to that one too. And then we could switch those two off. We could have just altered that. But that is right across that whole expanse. There's no changes between this. We've got some shadows up here, we've got some midtones, we've got some highlights. So that is more of a global change. Whereas doing this, let Photoshop take the pain out of it for us. And I can keep reusing this action time and time and time again. I can build one more which have all the various levels, so the darker and darkest and ultra dark, and the light and the ultra light that we saw previously. So that's it. I've run off the end of what I wanted to show you. I hope you found it useful. Don't forget the subscribe button if you want to be notified of future videos, and possibly a like button if you think this warrants a like, and feel free to leave any comments below. And until next time, I'll say bye-bye.